my homie had bond just to get him on the street. Hope if I get locked up, 50 do it for me. Yeah. And everybody wonder if I'm down with the unit, cause I'm still in the trap, homie, trying to get to it. Paying everybody bills, I'm locked down for real. This is what we do, we get it how we live. Hey, yo, hold on before 50 come here.
Hold on. That's it.
David Darnell Brown, born March 15th, 1981. Today's feature was once one of the brightest young stars of the early 2000s. He broke boundaries for not only putting his city of Nashville, Tennessee on the map outside of country music, but becoming the first and only rapper from Nashville to ever go platinum. If you've only been familiar with Young Buck within the last 5 to 10 years, you'd probably either think he was one of 50 Cent's failed flunkies that couldn't succeed outside of 50 Cent, or you'd maybe know him for the rumors circulating about his personal relationship preference and make your assumptions that way. But understand, Young Buck was a dope rapper. He's probably still a dope rapper, but for the reasons I'll explain, his music is seen as past what's cool, not pushed enough, or hasn't been consistent. He's most notable for his time spent with GUNIT Records, the hottest crew in the game from 2003 to about 2007, and if you ask him, he'd tell you he helped build that record label and crew just as much as anyone else. I remember first learning of Young Buck as a freshman in college. At the time, you couldn't walk or go anywhere without hearing someone playing 50 Cent's Guess Who's Back mixtape, and later his debut album Get Rich or Die Trying. For those that see this in 3020, understand, for hip-hop culture in 2021, I don't think we've ever seen an artist or group become as hot and have a rise like 50 Cent and GUNIT. They were huge. On that debut album, there was a song called Bloodhound that featured Young Buck. I immediately began listening closer because it was the only song featuring a southern artist to where even the beats seemed different than the East Coast sound popular with 50 Cent. Buck did his thing on that song, and from then on, while I understood he wasn't the group's best rapper, but a breath of fresh air and different in the hottest East Coast heavy group maybe ever. He continued dropping nothing but heat, beginning with the GUNIT album Beg for Mercy, then his debut GUNIT mixtape Welcome to the Hood in 2004, leading up to one of my favorite GUNIT projects, his debut album Straight Outta Cashville. The album sold 361,000 copies in the first week and eventually went platinum. Buck was on his way to huge success, and it couldn't have happened to a more deserving person. One that tried so many doors into the industry before and finally made it. It wouldn't last long, as he'd later be embarrassed online, dropped from his group he was so loyal to, and blackballed by a very unexpected source. Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man.
That nigga just get confused.
I know. Don't worry about it. You gotta be able to stay closer to me, Buck, so you don't fuck up.
Young Buck is from Nashville, Tennessee, and began rapping at the early age of 12 years old. By 14, he dropped out of school to take music more serious and act on an opportunity with Cash Money Records. The opportunity came about by Buck and a few associates coming up with a creative plan to put Buck in front of Cash Money head Birdman. They found the number to Cash Money's representatives interestingly on the back of BG's Cash Money debut album Chopper City, and decided to call the number and book Cash Money to come to Nashville for a performance that never happened. What happened though was Baby and Buck were finally face to face, with Baby actually being the one who asked Buck to spit for him. He did, and blew him away. Long story short, he flew to New Orleans to begin working on music, only to be shelved for years and leaving to find his own way. Stunt number 1, things not working out sooner. As you'll hear in this story, Young Buck's music career has a tragic ending. One that I think began at this very point. Yes, you know he ended up being a part of GUNIT, But what you may not know is how he got there and how many situations were this close to working out but fell through and opened the door for the best and worst thing to happen to him. With Cash Money, Buck could have fit right in with his southern counterparts, the Hot Boys and Cash Money, while still being different, seeing as he would have been the only artist on the label not from New Orleans, giving him a different sound and street perspective. But Cash Money had so many young talent on the roster before Buck, and with him being so young, he never got his chance. Cash Money hot boy Juvenile would leave the label in 2000 and recruited Buck, who was wasting away on the shelves, to join him and his new label UTP. Buck agreed and was now in another situation that could have been great for him with the name Juvie had and a chance to be a featured artist. Still, he placed the UTP deal to the side, jaded from prior deals, and hit the streets. He was shot in a home invasion multiple times, then decided to focus on music. He also had a small situation with DJ Paul and 3 6 Mafia, even being featured on their album When the Smoke Clears 66-61. For whatever reason, 3 6 didn't sign him, so he continued to rep UTP until while on tour in 2002, he managed to get GUNIT on he and Juvenile's tour bus because 50 wanted to work with Juvie. While they recorded in the back, Buck played music for Lloyd Banks and Shaw Money, GUNIT's producer, manager, and president. He played a song that would later be called Bloodhound, and Shaw loved it. Tour continues, and after some time, Shaw calls Buck and tells him GUNIT loved the song and not only wanted it for 50 Cent's album, but wanted to sign him. It would be a gift and a curse for young Buck.
You got me confused, homie.
Yeah, I know. Don't worry about it. This is an easy fix for me. You know what I said, go. You just gotta stay closer to me so you don't get confused. You see what I'm saying?
Stunt number 2, signing away his freedom. Worded that way because it seems that's what happens when you sign to a guy like 50 Cent. It's made him a legend and one of my favorite people personally, but for him, when it's business, it's business. And when business isn't smooth, he can be your worst enemy. After all the deals that fell through and all the contracts Buck tucked away in a shoebox, he finally signed the one that has him trapped to this day. With GUNIT, Buck couldn't have gotten a bigger look, especially after everything he went through and hustling his way literally to 50 Cent's air. After Bloodhound, his next appearance was on the GUNIT album as an introduction, and right then, Buck was seen as a star. He had the all-important street cred of the era, backed by the biggest in the game, and had personality, something group mate Lloyd Banks was seen as lacking at the time. He dropped his debut GUNIT mixtape Welcome to the Hood that was a street classic in many eyes before dropping his debut album Straight Outta Cashville that went platinum and added him to the rest of the crew's platinum success. It was led by singles like Let Me In, which is still my favorite Young Buck single, and Shorty Wanna Ride, which became Young Buck's biggest song, charting number 17 on Billboard and 6 for rap songs. It had legs to do even more, but Buck caught an attempted murder case trying to defend Dr. Dre at the 2004 Vibe Awards, where he stabbed a guy and received probation and community service. The Young Buck move, for the most part, was a success for all involved, until the making of album number 2. Young Buck had grew close to manager Shaw Money, whom he met through 50 Cent, even standing as best man in Shaw's wedding. During the recording of Album 2, 2007's Buck the World, Shaw and 50 Cent picked up personal issues that led to 50 letting his crew know that they had to all fire Shaw Money as their manager. Buck was the only one that stood by his side, and it caused tensions with 50 Cent from then on, including 50 Cent doing little to no promotion for the album Buck the World and touring with only he, Lloyd Banks, and Tony Yayo. 50, not long after, released a recorded phone call of Buck begging 50 to allow him to continue on with the group and continue making money. His fate was all in the hands of 50 Cent contractually, and 50, being who he was, didn't accept Buck's tears and unofficially blackballed him. Buck still owes 50 Cent 2 albums, to which 50 refuses to release, leaving Buck with no other options to date. Stunt number 3, handcuffed to a contract. At the bottom of Young Buck's contract with 50 Cent, I'm assuming it must read in fine print, "We ain't brothers. This is a business." Because that's essentially what Young Buck thought and what 50 Cent meant. Buck would be shelved for years and years without a release date, not even allowed to do features on other songs because 50 wouldn't clear the records. Make matters worse, Buck would deny the phone call, saying it was fake prior to its release, and began taking shots at 50 on wax, as 50 continued and continues to clown him to this day for crying on the phone and being caught with a shapeshifter multiple times but denying it. In 2014, I assumed the group was paid handsomely to get back together, even performing at Summer Jam and doing multiple interviews. It wasn't genuine, as 50 continues to handcuff Buck's music career with no end in sight. All in all, there was an end. Since Buck's first album going platinum and his second certified gold in 2007, he hasn't put out an album since, or features that for the most part weren't shut down by 50 Cent. He had a superstar's trajectory with early album success, but as the sound of hip-hop changing and him still being blackballed by someone he once repped, his music career seemingly has come to an end. 50 Cent looks no closer to releasing Buck, especially now with the climate of rap getting younger and gangsta rap from 40-year-olds isn't the wave in 2021. Will he eventually be freed? Maybe. Maybe one day someone buys out his contract with 50, but then again, who'd go against 50 in that way? Who'd want the 40-year-old? And how much would he be worth in today's climate? Rest in peace, Young Buck's career. It's sad what happened to it. May its name live on.